Welcome back. Let's continue on. So we're on our way to being able to do some HTTP. In order to do that in Elm, we're going to have to change the runtime a little bit. We want to introduce the idea of sending a command to the runtime and then it responding, after it, fetches data or does whatever. So there's a lot to getting HTTP going because we also have to do a decoder and stuff. So what I thought we'd do first is maybe just change what we got, introduce the idea of a command, and have it, just make sure that it works. So here's what we're going to do. At the moment, I can see that my model is this fully populated model. I think it might be fun to start off with an empty model, and then maybe wait a delay, maybe 3 seconds, and that's something that we'll need to use a command for. And then we can change the model to the populated model. So let's give that a try. First thing I'm going to do, just a little refactoring here, is we've got this model here, and this is the populated model. So I'm just going to cut that out of here, move it up here, we'll call it populated model, and we'll say it's equal to that. Now I'm also going to put a type declaration here. Populated model is a model. Easy peasy. And then down here I could just pass in populated model. Everything compiles again. And that'll work. That'll just do the same thing it does right now. Let's also add another one. Let's add the initial model. So if I say initial model, copy that. Initial model equals an empty object. Well, actually we want it to be a model, so I'll just say it's a model. Now the compiler's got our back, and we need to fill in the required things. So it's a record that's got a main section, and that main section's got a maybe. So we're going to say the main is nothing. Right? And then we're going to say items is equal to an empty array. Oops, and that should be equals, not a type. Right. And finally, nav buttons, and that's also an empty array. Oh, and need some indentation here. This is one of those things where the indentation's got to be right, otherwise the compiler complains. I like it. In fact, let's use the formatter to just format the whole document. Okay, so I'm going to change this to the initial model. So we're not feeding the populated model into our view, we're feeding in this initial model that's got nothing in it. And just confirm that that's doing the right thing. It should say loading page. Loading, yeah, that's what it says, loading. Okay, good. So now we want our main to do something a little more complicated. And for that, I'm going to go back to the Elm website. We're going to actually search for Elm browser. So here are some of the different ways you can use the runtime. That's how I think of this browser package. Elements is the one we want. Now Sandbox doesn't introduce the concept of a command. Sandbox does introduce the concept of update messages. So Sandbox is good for that, but it doesn't introduce the idea of command. So we want Browser.element. There's a few other variants here. Document is all about, well, if you're producing a document rather than HTML, this is a good option. And application, I think, is the most complicated of the set. It introduces the idea of basically routing. It's able to intercept what's on the URL and do the appropriate thing, etc., etc. So for us, element is a great starting point. So I'm going to copy this. Oh, actually, and here's the that is what this returns. So an element, the signature is program flags model message. Okay, what do we want? I think I'll copy this first. And we'll go over to our code. And we're going to get rid of this. And we're going to say main is browser. Oh, I always do this. Yeah, I haven't imported it yet. So it is part of the main, it is part of the main Elm. We don't have to do an Elm. We don't have to do an Elm install on browser, but you do need to import it to say I'm using this. Okay, that looks good. So down here I can say Browser.element. Nice. And Browser.element, here's, well, these are the types that we're going to be doing. And another thing that's important is that signature. So I'm just going to grab that signature and we're going to go back to code and we're just going to say that, yeah, the expected signature for main is program flags model message. Now, we're not actually using flags, so we're going to pass in unit here. And model, that's the type for that. And message, that'll be the type for that. In fact, I'm going to add a type here. Type message. At the moment, we just need something. So let's say do nothing. Right. Okay. Now I need to change these to actual assignments. So at the moment we can see the type that's being expected here. So for init, we're expecting a lambda function that returns a model / command combination. So let's just change this. We'll say init equals flags, right? That's the lambda. And the model, we're going to start with the, actually let's start with the populated model. And the command, we can do command.none. That's kind of our nice fallback for, I'm not actually doing anything. Okay, come on, there we go. Okay, on to the next one. View is something that takes a model and returns HTML. Well, that's what our existing view function does, so that should be as simple as view. Update has got this signature, and we don't have an update yet, so we're going to write a very simple update. Update equals, actually let's do this type signature first. And in our case, we know that it's type is message, type is model, type is model. So we can say update message model equals, so given a message and given a model, we're going to return a tuple that consists of a message and a command. So we can just say model and command none. So yeah, and this will change over time, but initially it's just like, hey, you give me a message, I'll just return you back the model. So we can say update equals update. And finally we have subscription, and we can see it takes a model and returns a subscription. Okay, it's a lambda function. So we'll do this, and we'll say return sub.none, because we're not dealing with subscriptions right now. Okay, actually that appears to be compiling, which is amazing. So let's go Elm make. Amazing, because I usually miss something. So let's go back to Chrome. Let's refresh. Okay, we're back. So we're using that new framework. We're not doing anything with it yet, but as you can see, we are using this new framework where we can pass, we started off with a populated model, and we set the initial command to none. But now we've got the plumbing in place for updates coming along. And I think we'll take a break, and in the next video we'll use a third-party library to add a delay and then switch between the initial and the populated view. So join me then. Thank you so much.